Good morning and welcome back to Books and Boots. This is episode 3. Today I'm in a lovely little village in the Cherwell Valley called Charlton, and I'm going for another circular walk, a little bit longer than last week's, but still not too long. We're off to a great start because I'm already feeling a little bit anxious because just over there there's a couple of farmers working on a dry stone wall, which I love to see, don't get me wrong, but I immediately feel a bit of a pillock stood here talking to myself.
Hi, I'm Martin, reader, writer, and now hiker.
It's very beautiful here though. I'm going that way.
I'm also neurodiverse and suffer from pretty bad social anxiety that can keep me indoors for days or sometimes even weeks at a time. This series is my attempt to change that and to reconnect with the nature that I love so much. Come with me. Let's discover what's out there together.
That is the beautiful village, but we today are going over here into the valley. Some definite field walking going on today. I think maybe I should have come across that slightly more substantial looking bridge. Never mind.
With social anxiety, stepping outside your front door can often feel like an adventure, but often it's the wrong kind of adventure. The dark kind, the scary kind. But getting outside and spending time in nature has proven itself to be beneficial to me time and time again.
Definitely looking a little boggy running through there.
As I set off across the fields and left the relative hustle and bustle of the village behind with its busy roads, I felt the countryside open up before me. It felt very peaceful here and very safe. And as is often the case when I head out into the countryside, I was very happy that I decided to leave my front door.
Ooh, what do we have here? A little bit of a river or something, or a brook. Ooh, there's a little bridge across or something. There's definitely the remains of some kind of infrastructure here. I don't know if that's meant to be a bridge or what, but it's pretty cool. I want to get across to the bridge. Now I just have to get back out. We're safe. Don't look so glum, chums. It's a beautiful day. This does feel like the perfect landscape to be in for this week's book, because this week's book is all about the fae, the fairies, the little folk, the good folk, the pale ones, the secret commonwealth, whatever you want to call them. But it focuses very much on the kind of revival of that folk horror tradition in the 18th and 19th century. And some of the stories definitely take place in landscapes very much like this. So I'm glad I'm not here at night. And according to the signs, I have multiple options right now. I could go this way. I could go that way. Or I could go to Arborough Camp, Ainhoe, or Clifton. In this instance, I want to go to Arborough Camp. Back along the fields. There's also a landmark coming up a little bit later on in the walk that will definitely set the scene perfectly. Aha, I need to be over there. at the edge of that hedge. This tree looks like it's seen a thing or two. It's a big old thick trunk at the bottom there. Just clearly shot up a lot of new trunks, new shoots over the years. It's a survivor. This shows you just how tight the hairpin turn I've just taken is. That's where I've just been, over there. And I'm going over there. I can't help but feel I probably could have just cut the corner off and saved myself 10 minutes. I would say there is a lot of field walking on this particular route. If you like field walking, then that's great, but I must admit it is getting a little bit samey now, especially as I can see from the map ahead that it's basically all the same on the way back. But there is one particular spot that I'm looking forward to getting to.
No sooner had I said this than Mother Nature took the opportunity to once again prove me staggeringly wrong. First, I noticed these 2 deer grazing by the edge of a hedge near the field boundary. Then suddenly there were skylarks everywhere. Which is when the real show began.
Well, let that be a lesson to me to never complain about lack of interest when field walking. Man, that was awesome. I always love to see deer, and I haven't seen any for a little while, so that was cool. But hares, I have only seen 1 or 2 hares in my life, and never that well. So that was fantastic. I only wish I had a slightly better camera to have been able to capture them better, but I can't complain.
I was definitely feeling a growing sense of magic around me, and I continued on with a new spring in my step towards my destination.
Ooh, that definitely looks like somebody's house. I wonder if they're in. Look at that white tree down there on the edge of a lake or a pond or a river. Hard to tell from here. Looks kind of eerie. So I'm not sure how much there is to see, but just on this ridge up above me is what I've been making my way towards. this is Rainsborough Camp, which is the remains of an Iron Age hill fort from about the 4th or 5th century. There isn't masses to see here now, but you can definitely see telltale signs of what was once here. And it definitely seems like a good place to pause and talk about today's book, because if there's anyone that knows something about the Fae, it's got to be the Iron Age people, right? So this week's book is Fearsome Fairies, Haunting Tales of the Fae from the British Library. I got this a few weeks ago. I picked up this and another one in the same series. I've got a whole series of collections of short stories centered around different things. This one is the Fae, and I have a fascination with fairies, but I've always been more interested in kind of the older stories and the origins of where these ideas of the Fae came from, as opposed to the more modern stories which tend to veer away from that. As I said earlier, these stories all focus on the 18th and 19th centuries, and so in that sense they are a little bit older than obviously a lot of fairy stories, original ones going back to, you know, the year dot. That's why I'm here in this ancient landscape. But they focus on that kind of revival of folk horror that was happening in that time, and I learned a lot, and it was fascinating. Being that some of these stories are pretty old at this point, there is a bit of variation in how readable they are. I found some a lot easier than others, but I didn't have too much trouble with any of them, and they were all enjoyable in their own way. There are all kinds of different fairies in this book. You've got changelings, you've got banshees, and everything in between, and there are definitely a few of them that sent a shiver up my spine, that's for sure. And a lot of them take place in landscapes much like the one I'm sitting in right now. And being here, you can definitely feel that magic in the air. I'm going to risk it, and I'm going to sit here and read for a while, revisit one of the stories from the book, but I might not sit here too long, because the sun is going in and the clouds are gathering, and I don't want to get caught out.
And so I spent a happy few minutes in this ancient landscape, reading tales of the ancient Fae. It felt right, sat encircled by this centuries-old ring and ditch formation, reading about creatures that would have seemed very real to the people that lived here, and a constant threat. Creatures that you had to be sure to not offend, and to even leave offerings and thanks to make sure that you didn't get on the wrong side of them. But before I found myself spirited away by the fairies, it was time to move on. It's easy to see when you're out in landscapes like these, even though I was just barely a mile from the village, why people would have felt a real spiritual connection to the peoples and the creatures of the lands. Something we've forgotten in the busy lives we lead now.
There's that white tree again. Definitely a little bit creepy down there. Definitely a lot of horses that have trod this path, but the question is, are they earthly beasts or creatures of the Fae? Oh dear, anybody lost a glove? No? So we're coming back down into the village now. I'm not quite sure where the path is here, but I reckon I'm going to head between those two trees. Hello, sheep. How you doing? There's the trees, and there's the gate. Pretty bang on, I'd say. A plane, or glider, or something of that nature. So we are just working our way here down along the boundary, this wavy little path, back to the road. Well, it's been a very interesting walk. About halfway through, I thought, you know, maybe this wasn't for me. It was getting a little bit boring. But then Mother Nature came along and proved me wrong, as she always does. It's been a great walk. I've had a lovely time. The weather's been amazing. The hill fort was pretty cool. And yeah, as I say, the nature I've seen has just been amazing. I can't get over those hairs, I really can't. So Thank you for coming along on this walk with me, and I will see you in the next one.
As I headed back into the village, I took some time to think about how good it had felt to be out in the open countryside. How, even though I was only a couple of miles from civilization, it felt like I was the only person on the planet. And yet, at the same time, surrounded by thousands of years of human history. Funnily enough, the eyes of the long since past didn't trigger my anxiety like the eyes of the living. But the living world beckoned, and it was time to rejoin it. If you've enjoyed this journey, please consider dropping me a like and subscribe to catch my next adventures. I'll see you next week, but for now, take care of yourselves.